All right. Hello, folks. Thank you so much for joining our monthly customer webinar for Evolve electrical users. This monthly recurring session is for you guys to get a chance to work directly with our customer success and product team. We demonstrate features, go over some common questions that we hear, and we will be taking your questions live today. So please, as we're going through things, submit your questions using the Q&A function, and we'll have time to get to those at the end. This webinar is being recorded and we'll forward the recording to all registrants. You can also find all of our webinar recordings on our Evolve YouTube channel. So I am going to hand it off today to Adam Heon to get things started.
All right, thanks, Marina. Let me share my screen and get into the topic. So I'll probably end a little early. We have Michael Reuter that should be joining us to kind of give a little presentation on 360 Sync. So we'll probably do that at the end. But what I want to cover today is the 7.0 release, go through the release notes, talk about some of the features. I'll demo some of the features out, and we'll leave some time for Q&A. Let me just pull up the Q&A. So if anybody writes anything, I'll try to keep an eye on that. All right. So installers can be found on our website, evolve-mvp/downloads. You'll know the 7.0 release. We dropped the 2020 support and added 24 support. And we have access to the release notes here. Something to note is that we added the archive link for old versions of Evolve. So basically any version that we've released, since our new licensing update back in last year, a couple of years ago, is now posted here. One thing you'll know is all the way at the bottom is the 2019 installers, which also is on the new licensing system, but it's a very old version that's available there. And then also at the top of this list, we did release a hotfix for 2020 only. The main update here was that we removed the project linking requirements. So the Foresight project dialog that would pop up on you and force you to assign a project, that's been removed as far as a requirement. It still exists. And then also the ability to even create a project from Revit was removed. So that was the main thing, but definitely check out the release notes. There were a few other things we put in here as far as improvements go that were also made in 7.0. All right, so what we'll do is we'll go through the release notes and check out some of these features. All right, so top one here, the quick dimension tool. So that's something worth showing here. So the intent of this tool is to basically dimension, say, system families, conduit, cable tray, what have you. So when you look at this tool, there is a configuration. I'll go through the various options and what they do. Let me just kind of set it up and do a quick little pick and click of the feature, and then I'll go through the options and why it's set up the way it is. So once you've set up a config, you activate the dimension. One thing that's new with 7.0 is we turn on this prompt action menu that just basically displays the same text that's in the lower left-hand corner, brings it front and center, basically tells you what the next step is and what to do. If you want to get rid of this, if you close out of it or move it, it'll tell you you have to turn this off in a workstation setting. Next time you start a command, it's going to pop up again. This is just going to let you know you have to go to workstation settings to shut it off. So over in the workstation settings, there's a new little section here. So this drop down controls this display. So basically you'd have to say do not display once you want to remove it, or you can change it from upper to bottom left-hand corner. There's also an option to use the enter key. So this was a commonly asked request here. So now whenever you see the finish button in the upper left, you can use the enter key to go through the command, speed things up. So anyway, basically the use case of the tool is just to grab a bunch of stuff, hit finish, click a spot, it adds a dimension. I'm in a plan view. I could do this from a section view, so I could dimension out KO patterns and things like that. So that's the initial use case for the tool. So what these options allow you to do, just kind of talking through them, and I'll show a few of them here, is obviously you can select your dimension style that you want to use. Whatever's in the project is available. Your method is basically the method that it pulls a dimension line off the system families. So you have a center to center, which is the center of everything, edge to edge, which would be the edges of everything, and then a center to edge where round systems, so conduit would get dimension to the center, and then like cable tray would get dimension to the edges. Um, what did I want to say about the oh, on the center to center, something to keep in mind, standard Revit visibility graphics apply to this. So you start a section view of some conduits. If that section view, oops, shut this off. If that section view has your rise and drop turned on, just think of native Revit. If I want to dimension to the edge of this conduit, there's no snapping edge of it. So if you're in this setting and you're trying to dimension to the edge of everything, what will happen in this case, you'll see is, let me just pull up, hold on. It'll just dimension basically to the center because it can't grab the edge of the conduits with these current visibility graphics. So if I grab those, add the center line reference point here, you'll see I'm getting the centers. So just keep that in mind that the visibility graphics come into play here. So basically, if I wanted edges, just turn off my rise and drop. Now, if I were to do it manually, I could hit that edge. And so the tool can also grab it here. So now I get all those little edge points. All right, going back to the configuration window, the next thing you have here are your options. So basically adding these other two options here basically gives you a second step to select things. So your initial selection without these enabled are system families and things like grid lines, reference lines, things like that. If you want to start pulling dimensions off of walls or other elements like the edge of a hanger or something, basically you have to just turn that option on. So I'll turn this first one on and just kind of demonstrate this. And when I do the second one, you'll see kind of how this all comes to play. So I'll put on select element edges. Now the selection process is still the same. I'm going to select, my straight elements. Now, when I hit finish, I have a second option to select edges. And you'll see now I'm basically in a mode where I can select an edge of something that's parallel with the runs. So I'll just pick that edge, hit finish, and then I'll click where I want my dimension handle to be. If I did this command again and tried to do a wall, which is linked, you'll see somewhere in there's a wall right here. I can't select that. So that's what that second option allows you to do, is select linked models. Now this does not add another step really. It's still just two steps of selecting, but it enables linked models. So again, I'll select my straight elements here, and now I have all these edges, and I have the edges of the walls as well to select from. So I could just select from there, hit finish, and then click where I want my handle position. Now, with these options, you do not have to select anything on the first or the second selection. So you can skip the first selection and just use the second, or you can skip or do the first selection and skip the second. So having these on all the time really doesn't matter. You would just end up hitting finish if you wanted to bypass one of the selections or the enter key. So um, for example, if I run this command again, I can just hit finish here. And now I have just all these edges to pick from. And I really can just use this almost as like a regular dimension tool if I wanted to. So keep that in mind. There's no like requirement of having to hit systems or edges or something like that. Um, the last one, which I was showing the whole time, was the prompt for handle position. That's just giving me the ability to point and click exactly where I want the dimension handle to be. If this is unchecked, it goes to the end of like the extruder of the elements that you selected. So something to keep in mind. If let's just say I was zoomed in, we'll say something like that. Select my elements here, select something there. So as I zoom out, you'll see the dimensions onto the right. The command finished, and it didn't look visually like anything happened. So keep that in mind if that's unchecked, that depending on how zoomed in you are and what you're dimensioning, those dimension lines could shoot off screen and off, off your view. Um, Obviously within your Revit view, but your active window. So prompt for handle position, I assume would just always be on for everybody, but keep that in mind. The continuous dimensioning just means the feature stays active throughout the feature until you hit escape or cancel. This does have its own selection config for quick dimensioning. So if you never wanted to dimension cable trays or only specific conduits and not others, you could certainly refine that in a selection filter. All right, that pretty much covers that tool. Hopefully that ends up being very helpful. So an enhancement to the spacing tool is we support multi-tier alignment. So I just pull this up here. Let's just do. So basically, when you pull up this placement window here, or the spacing window, there's an additional option here for align multiple rows. So when that is enabled, the selection process is still the same. You're selecting a stationary, but now you can select everything and hit finish, and everything will get pulled in based on the spacing options. This is not doing multi-tiered elevation setting. So the assumption here is your elevations, are what they are, and we're just tightening up the the conduits where they are. View rotation angle for spool sheets. So this is useful for when spools are not perfectly straight. So if I rotate this thing at oops, some real big angle. Basically, I have a condition where my spool is not straight. So I'm going to go ahead and define this as something. I'll create a sheet here. Let's do this one. So within my sheet, my plan and side views are all angled. Basically, they're relative to Project North, so that's why they're crooked. So now what you have within Prefab Manager is a rotation angle field. Technically, you can come in here and you can just type any angle you want, and it will rotate the views that angle. But the intent here is to use a calculate function. So if it's done, you could do this before you create sheets just to see if it returns an angle, or after you created a sheet and you see that you need to change it, you'll have to come in here. You can use our tool to calculate the angle. I'll just hit yes and I'll come back to what this is saying. But let's see. There we go. So I'll go over that dialogue and why I hit no. But we calculate an angle. I'll go ahead and apply that. That writes it to the assembly. And then I'll have to regenerate my sheet to refresh the views here. And now my views are straight relative to like the rotation. So then my section views obviously get my nice section views conduits. So that's what the tool is done. Again, like the intent of how this would be used would be if I'm going to generate, a handful of spool sheets, I'd probably run the calculation tool, then generate the sheets. Now the calculation, the way the rotation works is it's if you hit no, it's going to use the longest straight element, conduit tray or whatever, and it's just going to try to use that to create the angle, to basically square it up to that. The other option is it'll look for something contained in a scope box to figure out the rotation angle as well. So basically, it's like you can choose your method. If both they could give you different results. They probably will both return the result where the view is squared, but could just be squared relative to a different point. But basically, it's two different methods to run an angle. And again, if the angle for some reason was wrong or we're not doing it right, you could certainly figure out the angle yourself and enter the value there and recalculate it. Certainly let us know how this works. Again, this was just a first way to kind of calculate stuff. If there's other spools where this is not working correctly, we'd love to get feedback on that. Some colorizer updates here. There's now a shift function for clear colors, just to remove the, is that the one? Or refresh colors? Refresh colors. Yeah, the uses of refresh colors. Yeah, that's what it was. Sorry. Refresh colors is a new one. And then on element filter, there is a shift function here where you can clear your view and then rerun your active colorizer rules. Previously, this function would actually just reset the whole view. So it would override all your colorizer rules. What would happen? There's now a delete spool button in the prefab manager. I mentioned the enter key within workstation settings and the same. There is now an option also in the workstation settings to disable background processes. So this, we've had support issues coming in with sync problems. Some of them can be caused by users that are in evolve and then not in evolve and doing common type functions that kind of corrupt the data a bit, causing a sync issue. This will disable those updaters on the evolve side during the work sharing sync, should correct some of those issues that occur. But just know that those updaters are not running. So some of these things, depending on what these rules are doing, may need to be refreshed in the project at some point. But you can disable those during a work sharing sync. And this should actually improve sync times as well, because you're not updating elements. And of course, 24 support. So I'll cover a few of these and then just talk about the rest. This first one I want to show everyone because I think it's going to be a really powerful tool, something we're going to take advantage of in the future. So within the data profile itself, within the element filter, there's an option to query linked models now. So think of like the find elements tool. That's what I'll use to demonstrate this. I want to return a list of items, elements out of my linked model. So I'll do something simple because I have just a linked generic architectural model. So I'll return walls, doors, windows. I'll just call it something. Um, so what I'll do is I'll go into my element filter here and I'll add walls, doors, windows. Okay. I'm not worrying about parameters, but I'm just grabbing walls, doors, and windows. I skipped over. With the categories defined, I have this new tab here for linked models. So now I'll use my architectural link here and use that as the model that I'm going to query. So for parameters, I'll just do something easy like family name, uh, do type name. We could do even element ID. So one of the new features is capturing an element ID from here without using a script. Now I just need to name the columns. Family type ID. All right. So uh, for those who are not familiar with data profiles and how this works, I'm obviously going pretty quickly through it. So I'm not intended to go through the whole uh, feature here, but essentially what I have is now an element filter looking for doors, windows, and walls, and I'm going to return my family name, type name, and my ID. So now within the find elements feature, when I refresh this list and I find my new profile here and hit refresh, these are all blue because these are not actual elements in my host model. These are linked elements, and I'm returning my family type and the element ID from that model. Um, so some additional use cases for this is pulling quantities from engineers models. If you want to get a query a list of panels by name, light fixtures by type, how many devices are in this model, we're using the profile to define what parameters to look for. So you'd have to kind of do a little probably R&D on where to look for the information. But once you know where that information is, this will extract it very easily. Um, so I'll start probably developing some use cases that will I'll be able to show in the future, but just think of utilizing data tables as a project level lookup table, which contains a bunch of engineer model data that you can compare your data to. So it's very abstract, probably how I'm describing it, but hopefully we can come up with some good concepts and show those off and how you could utilize those. The selection prompt we talked about, spool weight column, that's for mechanical, continuous union placement. That's just a small enhancement where the window stays active. For concentric bends, for the scenario where, let's just say you have your, I'll just demo this one, easier to show. All right, so let me just put something in here. So I have these concentric bends. If uh, let's see, what would I do? The scenario would be, I guess, um, if I added more here, um, I guess there's a couple scenarios. I'll just do it from this perspective. If I were adding, let's just say these were deleted. This is kind of the use case, I guess. These are not there, and we wanted to base the concentric radius off an inner radius that was custom, let's just say. So maybe I custom define this or whatever, however I got to this point. Previously, this would be reset to a standard radius and it would just rebuild everything. Um, Now you can grab everything and it's going to ask you, what do you want to do? You want to update the selection, reset the standard bend radii or use the existing minimum to make the concentric. So by using the existing, this gets maintained and I can expand it out from here. I think the use case or what was how this was being used was I think the conduit was being used to model as cable and it was doing some tray cable and getting larger radiuses and stuff. But it was a pretty easy feature to add in there. I won't get really into the special values. I did kind of show getting element ID from your special values. There's some others here that you can capture. This is probably a whole topic, that we should cover in a webinar or something about data profiles and how you can use them. But for the sake of time, I'm not going to get too much into those. So some of the changes and things here, I think most of these are pretty minor. Let me just look through them, make sure there's nothing. This is actually a pretty nice one. Hopefully people will appreciate this. Any menu that you can put a record into a modified state. If you try to run a feature, it would tell you you have to say apply your changes and then run the feature. Now it's going to just say, do you want to save and continue? So you don't have to click out of it, click apply, go back. So save some clicks there. The configuration exchange will override existing conflicting configs. Just a minor little update there. Let's see. Let's see. Yeah, I think these are pretty minor. Again, the removal of the Foresight project link. I'll talk about that in a few as well. Some bend issues that were fixed, that were reported. I think this is everything that I wanted to cover. We did do a few content updates. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all the items I wanted to cover. So now on the Foresight topic, so just jumping back here, 7.0, you'll still see the Foresight properties is here. Again, when you go to assign project, you have the ability to still do it. You do not have the ability to create a new project. That would have to be done on the website, but you don't have to link anything at all if you don't want to. With an upcoming release, we will remove basically this button from here completely, and it'll be handled as a separate integration that you'll have to separately install if you want to use it. The licensing functions will still be there, and all that will work as it always has. So you can be expecting that kind of change coming next month or so. I'll open it up for questions, and then we have Michael here, which will talk about 360 Sync. So if you have a few questions, I can answer those now or at the very end. Here's a question. Is the shared parameter file in the Evolve library updated when we update Evolve? Yes, so the shared parameter file is updated. And there's actually a couple of things in here now to take note of. So all these files would be updated if they were modified. Whether we add additional parameters from families, that's where this main file contains all shared parameters. This one and this one contains the parameters that we load in. So this would be the file you'd want to look at. Something also to note is we have an Excel sheet here that has all the Evolve elements itemized. So this is actually a full list of every part and piece that we have content for. So as you scroll down, there's about almost 10,000 items. Basically meaning, if you modeled every size and type of thing that we had in our catalog, you would end up with about 9,700 unique items. Some of these things would not be actual parts. They might just be generic light fixtures or things like that. But again, most of this is actual parts and pieces. So that's there for reference or use as you see fit. We'll have some use cases to, and how you can use this data in the future. Is there an update on additional support types? Is it possible to modify the support family? Evolve currently used to a different type. All right, so uh, the the question on the support families or even any family, our goal is to introduce a configuration so you can adapt other families to these tools. And then also we want to provide more families themselves. That is obviously not in here today. So if you take supports, for example, or the seismic support family, a lot of these families now require certain naming conventions. So you'll notice like hangers, for example, have to use our naming convention. You can certainly modify these, keeping these names. You can add a little bit of text here to change it up a bit, I believe. I think it has to be like in between the tier and the V8. But uh, you depending on how well you can modify families and figure this stuff out, the complexity is kind of a little challenging. One thing, if you are going to try to make a family, really what you want to pay attention to is the insertion point of the family. So if you use like our family as a proof of concept, the insertion point is there, top of strut, rods go up from there, width goes out, centered. Um, so that combined with what parameters we actually write to, there's a lot of stuff to go into about it. Um, so I guess at the end, yeah, you can modify families. I know it's complicated, it's tough, but we're looking to improve that. Another question, how do we know which families got updated? In the release notes, um, these are the changes to the content. So that's uh, what you would expect to see. Um, question, is there any way to add a suffix to the native evolve family name to keep unique? Um, I guess if you can elaborate on that question, add a suffix to what evolve family name, what type of family, I guess is what you're referring to. Oh, yeah, trapeze family. Yeah, if you add a suffix to that, it will stop working. Off the top of my head, I don't know if it's the full name that you have to keep. There's multiple there's two different naming conventions for like a one tier, for example. There's the one tier, no hardware. Um, if you uh, use the exact name, it will work. But I don't remember I think you have to add text in between here and it won't break it if I remember correctly, but you may have to use the actual full name. Um, I just don't know off the top of my head. There's a question here. Was wondering about being able to update the conduit run schedule from the schedule itself and seeing those changes update on the modeled conduit. I assume that's referring to possible changes in size or type, and changing the model from there. That may be something we look into, but it's not on the near future to do. Uh, the intent behind this was never to really drive model geometry, just because it introduces just issues with that. It's really to read and write data. So you can always modify data and push it. But geometry currently is not something we support. But there's a question here, duct bank cards, can you export them as a DXF with holes, including clearances around pipe for manufacturing? Currently, Evolve does not provide anything to do that, but that is something we do want to create as a quick deliverable. Actually, I don't know if I have. Let's see. Uh, yeah, I don't know where I don't have a view set up here. But yeah, so currently what you would have to do is section view one of the templates and draw the circle around it and export DXF from Revit. It would all be manual. But that is something we're looking into. Is there any way to schedule a conduit run degree of bends? So to see the complete list of runs and total bends. Schedule, yeah, you probably could do that. Uh, I'm gonna hand it over to Michael. I'll see if I can do this while Michael's presenting, and I'll give an example of that one. Otherwise, I'll pick that up uh, on the next call. Yeah, I think you can use a Revit schedule on the question being versus quick bend tool one by one. You should be able to schedule the angles by run. We are looking to improve the run schedule quite a bit, and looking at degrees and things like that would be in there. But today you'll have to do it through a Revit schedule or something. All right. Certainly keep submitting questions. I want to hand this off to Michael so he can run through 360 Sync. And if we have time at the end, I'll certainly jump back in if needed. All right, Michael, it's to you.
All right. Thanks, Adam. So hello, everybody. My name is Michael Reuter. I am the product manager for 360 Sync. In case you don't know what 360 Sync is, basically it's just an easy to use tool that's going to let you copy files from one place to another, either automatically by clicking a button, on a schedule, automatically, or in real time. If you see all of the little icons that we see on the screen here, this is everything that 360 Sync connects to. The whole purpose of me being on this call is to let our Evolve customers know that they are currently eligible for a 3-month completely free trial of 360 Sync. We will help you set it up. We'll help you get it started. But so if that's something that you're interested, please feel free to reach out to myself or Adam or any of us on this call. I think we'll probably drop my email in the chat here shortly. But if that's something that you're interested in, then great. If you're still like, well, I don't even know what the heck it is right now, rest assured by the end of this, hopefully you'll understand what it is and why we have it. Okay. And so basically, I'll start by telling the story. So I've been here with with Evolve for the past 8 years almost. And prior to that, I worked as a BIM coordinator for a project engineer or for a general contractor. Okay. And so part of my job as a BIM coordinator was with file management. And so basically, it was my job whenever a new file came in, whether it was an RFI or a submittal or a model for coordination, it was my job to download that file first and then save it on my company's server. Okay. Then I would have to go and save it onto SharePoint because that was the location that that project used to manage all their documents. Then I'd have to do it a third time because we were using BIM 360 for field use. And then I would have to do it a fourth time because I would have to copy it to the architect. And so I would have to copy that file to Newforma. So I was doing the same bit of work 4 times, and it was time consuming. It was frustrating. Probably I spent a half an hour to an hour every day just moving files from one place to another. And so it impeded me. It kept me from going out in the field and solving problems out in the field. It kept me from doing what I was hired to do with BIM coordination and managing the model and finding clashes and figuring out how to resolve them. And so when I came here to Applied, our owner always asked the question, what's a broken workflow in your industry? And so when they asked me that, I thought of the problem that I just described. And so he paired me with a developer, and so we built it. Okay, so that was about 5 or 6 years ago. But if you see this slide on the screen, this shows everything that 360 Sync can connect to. So if you connect to 2 or 3 of these things, then 360 Sync is really going to be super helpful for you. Okay. One thing that's not shown here is obviously we connect to Foresight. So we can actually take files to the drawing registry or from the drawing registry inside of Foresight. So you can copy files to and from there depending on what you need to do. But yeah, so I'll just go down the list. You can connect to Windows. Because you connect to Windows, you can connect to things that have desktop clients, or basically just a little drag and drop folder that pops up whenever you install something like Box, Dropbox, Google Drive, Ignite, ShareFile, ODrive, OneDrive, or Panzura. If you can connect to it, using your Windows Explorer, then 360 Sync can connect to it. Okay. We've also built 360 Sync out to work with PlanGrid, Viewpoint for projects, Newforma, Citrix files, Bluebeam Studio projects, Autodesk Vault, Autodesk Construction Cloud, that also includes BIM 360, Asite, SharePoint, and Procore. So all of those things we can connect to, and we can take files to them or from them, either at the click of a button, on a schedule, or in real time, meaning you copy the file to one place and then moments later or seconds later, it is copied to the destination. Okay. So that's a little bit about 360 Sync. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show off the cloud tool. Okay. So right now, if you see my screen, you should see 360 Sync right there. As you can see, it's part of the Foresight module, or it's part of the Foresight platform. The way that you would access it is you would come over here onto the little waffle up here in the top right corner, and you would pick 360 Sync. And so the first thing you're going to want to do when you set this up is you're going to want to add connectors. So you're going to want to choose the things that you want to connect to so that you can copy files to them or from them. Okay. So you can see I've set up a ton of them here. If I'm going to set something up for Windows, super easy to do. I just click on I click the plus to create a new one, and then I choose Windows from the data source. I name it, and then I take an agent ID from a little installer or a little tool that we created. You hit copy agent ID, and then you paste that into that thing or into that field, and you hit connect. Okay. So once you do that, it'll say, hey, it was successful or it was unsuccessful. Okay. Setting it up for Foresight, super easy. Just put your username and password in. And same thing for something like Autodesk or Procore. Okay. You do that, you log in, and you click allow, and you're good to go. So you set those up one time, and then you shouldn't have to do it again. 360 Sync should remember it. But from there, you're going to want to create workflows. Okay. And so you would come over here, and If you wanted to create a new workflow, then you could either pick an old one or you could choose to create one. So that's what I'm going to do. So we'll call this EE webinar, and we'll call this download example. Okay. All right. So now I'll come over here and I'll come to my connectors. And so let's say I want to take files between Autodesk, Foresight, and we'll just say Procore, just for the sake of argument. Okay. So if I want to copy files from Autodesk to Foresight and Procore, then I can do that. Okay. So now I'm going to choose my actions and I'm going to drag an action over. So notice there's only one action right now, but in the future we will have several, including, so we've already got copy files, but you'll be able to publish models, export data to Excel, and we'll be able to build RFI and submittal workflows. Okay. So I'm just going to call that one copy files. And so when that happens, it brings this little functionality up. And so now if I want to take files from Autodesk, I choose my company, I choose my project, then I choose the folder that I want to sync. And so if I wanted to, I could sync everything by checking this box. Or if I just wanted to move my coordination files and maybe my NWDs, then I could do that. And that's actually a bunch of big files, so I'm not going to do that. So let's say I just wanted to pick 2 folders, I could do that. Or maybe I just wanted to move this one coordination folder. But anyway, I chose what I wanted to copy. Now I could also choose to filter out file types. So let's say I only wanted to move NWD files or NWF files or Revit models or CAD drawings or some combination of those. If I hit filter by file type, I can choose what I want to copy. So if I just wanted to move Revit and DWGs and then Navisworks files, I could do that. Okay. But since I want to copy everything, I'm not going to filter anything out. Okay. So now I'll come over here to next and I'll choose my first destination. So I want to copy my files in my coordination folder to the Foresight document document repository. So then I'll pick my project, and then I will pick the folder inside of there. Okay, so I'll just pick that folder. Now let's say I also wanted to copy these files to Procore. I could do that as well. Same thing, I pick my company, I choose my project in Procore, I choose what I want to copy files to, and then I'll choose my folder. So here, if I wanted to drop these just right into the root folder of that Procore project, I could do that, or I could select an existing one, or I could pick, I could choose to create a new one. So we'll call this 360 Sync EE webinar. Okay, so hopefully that one won't be too hard to find. I'll scroll on down here. There it is. Okay, so we're going to copy the files that were taken from Autodesk to Foresight and to Procore. Okay. And so now I'm going to choose what I want to do. So like I said, there's 3 ways to sync. We can sync everything right now, meaning if I just hit save and sync right now, then all the files would be copied and migrated one time from ACC to Foresight and to Procore. Okay. Also, if I wanted to, I could choose to schedule this. So maybe I wanted this to run Monday through Friday since it's 2:49 for me. So let's just say it's 2:51 p.m. Then I could do that. But the real power is to have this run in real time. And so what would happen is 360 Sync would run immediately, just like it would if you were to hit sync now. And then once that was done, if any file in the source was updated, or if there was a new file that was created in the source, then in real time, within moments, maybe perhaps even seconds, files would be copied to both destination locations. So I'll just do that. And so then boom, there we go. It's going to start. And so basically we're going from Autodesk, we're copying files to Foresight into Procore. And so that's it. Okay, so again, the whole, if this is something that might be of value to you or your company, here's my call to action. Okay. We are releasing this to all of our Evolve customers. There's a 3-month trial that's free, that you can use it, test it out, see if it's something that's of value to you. And then if that's something that interests you guys, please email me, and then I'll get you started. Okay, so I'll drop my email in the chat. Oh, actually, I cannot do that. I guess Marina, can you do that?
Absolutely. Yep. The
Okay.
email is available in the chat now if you guys take a look.
Okay. So that's my little thing. Again, we have 360 Sync in the cloud. It is available to all Evolve customers. If this is something that is of value to you, please contact me. I'll get you set up with a 3-month trial. We'll make sure that everything's working for you from the very start, and you can test it out. Okay. So I appreciate your time. I see that Adam has gotten a couple more questions, and I know that he was working on resolving one of those questions from earlier. So I'll hand it back over to him. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael. So a couple questions came in. Here, let me share my screen. Come back to here. I wasn't able to throw the schedule together, so Joel, I'll reach out to you directly about that. There's a question here about when creating locations, is it possible to set up the direction of the section views? So what you can do, let me just open something here. When defining your section or elevation views, the direction is defined within the view window family right here. So you can actually see, like in this example, this is an elevation option here. And the arrow will point in kind of the direction of the elevation tool. But if this was a section view, you'll see the arrow points this direction, which is the direction of the section. So selecting the direction is defined here. Hopefully that answers that. There's another question about the hangers not attaching to sloped concrete roof structure. Is it possible to have them attached to different elevations? If you can share that model with us, send it to me directly. We can certainly take a look at why that may not be happening. An option you have, what could be causing it is it's not visible in the view, possibly. Another option is if you cut a section and draw like a reference plane along that slope, name it something to identify it if you have a lot of reference planes, but that will be available in the placement options here where you can select a reference plane. But again, there's an example, roof pitch. If you don't name it, it's just going to give you an element ID. So name it so you can tell what it is. But that's how you would get around that, at least temporarily, if there's an issue. But again, if you can share that with us, that would be great. And I think that answers all the questions.
Great. Thank you so much, both Adam and Michael, for covering all of that today. And thank you to our wonderful Evolve community for attending. I hope that you found the information valuable. Please make sure to follow us on all social media channels to keep up with all of our upcoming webinars. You can also find more demos and past webinars on the Evolve YouTube channel. And just as another reminder, this webinar has been recorded. We'll send out the recording in an email to all registrants. And we hope to see you guys again next month. Thank you so much and have a great day.